And I believe we are live. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope you're doing well. This is MPP Begum, your MPP for Scarborough Southwest. We're here with another town hall in Scarborough, and I have some incredible guests here with me today. I believe we're good to go for Facebook and YouTube, Maisha?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. First, thanks to Maisha in our office, who's been doing a fantastic job putting this all together. A huge round of applause for her and a Zoom round of applause. And also to thanks to all the constituents who have reached out to our office with questions, concerns, and have been sending their thoughts through email as well. We had a lot of interest in different topics, and we wanted to cover just a wide range of questions and concerns that we've been hearing about the impact this pandemic has, more specifically Omicron variant has had on our community. With the way that people have been struggling with different aspects of Omicron, it was sort of like we've just faced this wave again for another round, and the issue with COVID testing, people feeling unsafe at work, from families feeling uncertain about the safety of their children in classrooms, local businesses and workers. The challenges were enormous on many different fronts, and that is why we have called this town hall and brought together people from different sectors who have been working hard in our communities, who have been championing these issues and fighting for our community members. And I hope that we're able to answer some of your questions today. And if we can't get through all your questions, please feel free to reach out to our office, and we'll be happy to answer them and make sure that we connect with some of the experts we have on our panel as well to see how best we can serve you and provide the best response for you. In terms of a few housekeeping, today we have some guests with us. That's okay. That's Mart's dog on the background. So if she comes around, or if he comes around, then please just introduce to us. That's I think we're at that point of this pandemic now where we expect it. So today we have some special guests. What I'll do is first I'll introduce our panelists, and then we'll be asking some of the community members who will be sharing some of the challenges they have been facing. And these community members have been champions in our community in Scarborough Southwest, and we want to make sure that we hear some of their concerns, some of their thoughts, and then I'll go to the panelists so that they have an idea and ask them to do a small sort of a brief about some of the work they've been doing and what challenges we're facing. And then we'll go to question and response. So very simple. We'll get right to it. I'm one of those politicians who doesn't like to talk a lot, so I'm going to stop here and go straight to introducing our guests. First, I have Dr. Amina Jabbar. Amina, say hi to everyone. Dr. Amina Jabbar is a geriatric in the Greater Toronto area. She's a former social worker with extensive experience working with marginalized populations. Dr. Amina Jabbar also earned her Master of Science with a focus on the evaluation of healthcare services. She subsequently completed medical school in internal medicine specialty training at the University of Toronto, followed by subsequently training in geriatric medicine at McMaster University. Dr. Jabbar is currently a health policy PhD student at McMaster University and serves as the chair of Progress Toronto. She is also from Scarborough, so who better than come here to talk about the issues, one of the most important issues we've been hearing about, which is our care for our seniors. So thank you, Dr. Jabbar, for joining us. Next, I have Lynn Moore. And Lynn, if I pronounce that wrong, please let me know. Perfect. Okay. Lynn is a registered nurse who has worked in the healthcare space for the past 31 years. She is currently the director of community health at Scarborough Center for Healthy Communities, an organization you all know very well and we've worked really closely with, who have been doing really amazing work. As chair of the Infection Prevention and Control Committee, Lynn is working with a talented group of managers, staff, and volunteers to serve our community through the COVID-19 crisis. Welcome, Lynn. Next, I have MPP Marit Stiles. My colleague and friend Marit Stiles is the MPP for Davenport and the official opposition critic for education in the Legislative Assembly. And she's been a rock star at Queen's Park, fighting for our kids, our parents, educators. She's a passionate advocate for public education. Marit is committed to ensuring local schools have the resources they need to foster strong communities and help students succeed. Thank you, Marit, for joining us. Welcome. And next up, I have MPP Wayne Gates. Many of you in Scarborough know Wayne is a fighter at Queen's Park. Wayne Gates is the MPP for Niagara Falls and the official opposition critic for workplace, health, and safety, training, trades, and apprenticeship at the Legislative Assembly. He holds a big portfolio. Wayne is a longtime advocate for the rights of workers and decent work, an issue that we have been it's very close to our heart and something so important in Scarborough. A community advocate, Wayne is an experienced worker and a longtime community activist. And a longtime community activist, Wayne is determined to fight to make life more affordable for the people of the communities he represents. I have seen Wayne work hard to make sure that he's standing up for people, something that, and he's been a role model for many of us new MPPs when we talk about worker safety, workers' rights, the idea of deeming WSIB. So thank you, Wayne, for joining us as well. Now we will hear from our Scarborough Southwest neighbors. Folks, those of you who know the way we do our town halls, we like to have our community members share what their concerns are first, because it is very important to us. It's important to make sure that we provide that space to local constituents. So first, I will go to Jessica Whitmore, who's a local parent and a community member, very active. And I believe she is here. Jessica, take it away. Tell us some of the things that you've been seeing in our community and would like for our panelists to address today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Please tell me if I ramble. I'll keep it pretty straightforward. But yes, I'm a parent in Scarborough. I've been here ever since '86. I started a family here. I have two girls. They're in grade 7 and grade 2. And, I'll acknowledge I also sit on the council as the Danforth Gardens school chair. And one of the things I've experienced is every parent has a different experience when it comes to virtual and in-person learning. And they also have all sorts of comfort levels, and so trying to address all of those feelings has been such a challenge. And I really appreciate everybody here who's been advocating for those things. I'll share a little bit of my experience. So I have two girls, one's grade 7, grade 2. Both had very different experiences in school for virtual. I think other people with preteens or teens, they know that the Zoom meetings were all black screens with just screen names. And it was incredibly hard to engage and to keep her engaged. Even though she enjoys virtual, I was like, how on earth, even as a teacher, how do you teach like that? That must be the hardest job in the world. Comparative to my grade 2 daughter, all the kids, you could see all the kids, you could hear them learning. It was a great experience. And even, I've had the experience of 2 teachers teaching virtual, and sometimes the skill sets are different and the comfort levels are different in order to give that education through virtual. And I saw a difference, but I never saw the teachers ever not give 100%. And so I was very thankful for that. However, I know that other people experienced other things. I heard about a lot about teacher swapping in the middle of the year, teachers being pulled out, put in, and nothing will get my 2-year-old going on an anxiety trip is losing that routine of who she's learning with and who she's going to be learning with tomorrow. Is it going to be the same person? Is it going to be that nice lady, or is it going to be somebody new? Do I have to learn a different name? What if I don't? She had a little breakdown this morning because we were returning a library book. And I said, it's okay. The only person who's done anything wrong is me because I lost the library book and it's late. It's not you, it's me. So that's the other thing I wanted to touch on was, so now that we're back in person, and I'm very happy to have that, the safety aspect of being back in school. And as I'll mention again, I'm with the TDSB, and I don't know the other boards and what they've implemented as far as COVID safety. So I'll be very thankful that our school actually did keep informing us about COVID exposures in the classroom, because the first thing I thought when Stephen Lecce made an announcement that, or whomever it was, that they weren't going to be reporting anymore, I thought, well, how do I turn around and report appropriately to my workplace? Now I won't know until possibly 2 or 3 days when it's too late. I've already been at work and I've been exposing people at work to COVID. That was back in the times when you couldn't get rapid tests, and things happily have changed a little bit more, but will they be continuing to support in those ways? And I'll touch again on the social anxiety. Now that we've been back in school, my older daughter, it's pretty impossible to get her to attend school regularly. This wasn't a habit before. She always went to school. She might have struggled, but she always went to school. And today, like last week, it was, I can't go to school. The ice is too bad. And I said, okay, the ice is bad, but I don't mind if it takes an hour, just get to school. But no, it wasn't that. It was, after talking with her and trying to pull things out of her, she's not afraid to go back to school because of COVID. She's afraid to go back to school because there's students that are feeling more stress, maybe having more outbursts. Kids are still crammed into those same classes that I went to in the 80s, and they're no bigger. Every time they show a classroom on the TV, it infuriates me because they show a classroom that actually has desks spaced out. It's probably a newer building, and those are not the buildings we have in Scarborough. These are old buildings from the 50s that are falling apart. And that's my last point is, as we saw with the senior care, COVID wasn't the thing that caused the problems in the senior care. COVID was the thing that showed how badly we were underfunding everything. And then the government was just blaming COVID. No. Our schools were falling apart before, and we're not funding them properly. Our kids need our extra support and our therapists and, those wonderful people, these social workers. They need those caring people in the classrooms to keep them going and keep them, interested into their education. And, we want to catch those kids that are struggling, and COVID's going to really highlight that now. So thankfully, my school has some great support people there, and they're going to try their best to keep my daughter to attending. But what happens later? Is the government still going to underfund? Unfortunately, I'll say probably yeah. They'll find some reason to, tuck it here or tuck it there. But what's the backlog at our school? That's just the physical building. How about the education? How about the funding for education? Why does the Durham board have all these laptops and have had laptops for years? So to go virtual was not a struggle. The TDSB is the largest education board in our province. Correct me if I'm wrong. But why do we not have these fundings? We're supposed to be leading education in the future. We're not supposed to be teaching back when I was little. You know, we're supposed to be educating these students to be ready for, 2040 and furthermore. So give them supports. When I see teachers that are using laptops that are literally falling apart, it drives me nuts. And I do not want the education minister to turn around and expect, this is what drives me nuts. School councils are not supposed to be fundraising these gaps. They're supposed to be providing proper education. Why are school councils fundraising for technology? We shouldn't have to do that. It should be properly funded. We already pay taxes. It should be properly funded. So that was all the things I think I wanted to cover. Food is hard to pay for, and I'll keep myself short. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. That was really, really important. And you highlighted quite a lot of different issues. Mara just messaged as well saying TDSB is the fourth largest school board in North America. It's huge. The responsibility is huge. And one of the things Jessica mentioned was parent council. A lot of our parent councils do so much just to keep up with the expenses in our schools. And Jessica highlighted just exactly what the conditions are in Scarborough Southwest schools. It's just unbelievable. Before the pandemic, we highlighted actually just the cost of it, how, some of the costs are the exact same of building a new school. I want to go to Janet Stokes, who is a personal support worker, and I believe she's here as well. And please feel free to turn on your camera if you feel comfortable. If not, you don't have to. Janet, I don't see Janet on the screen.
I'm here, but I can't put my video on. I don't know why. I'm trying to, but it says that the host has asked you to start your video, but I don't know. I'm not techno savvy here. Let's try. Okay. Oh, here I am. Hi. Okay. I'm just coming into the meeting now. So I don't know what I've missed or what you'd like me to talk about. I have lots to say.
Just tell us a little bit of who you are, very in short, and what kind of things you have noticed as a personal support worker. We also have I introduced Dr. Amina Jabbar, who's an expert and will be addressing some of the issues in terms of seniors care, in terms of long-term care. So as someone who's in the field, feel free to go ahead and share your experience and what you. Also, Wayne Gates, MPP Wayne Gates is here, and some of the things you've experienced regarding your PCR test and the other issues that we've been, trying to support our local constituents about, and something you know very well.
Okay. So my name is Janet. I'm a home care PSW. My spouse tested positive through a rapid test on January 4th, which put me out for 10 days because for obvious reasons. We went and we got a PCR test done on January 6th, which both of us are still waiting for the results today. Like this is February 9th or 8th. And we're still waiting for the results to come back. So I was off work for 10 days. 3 of them were paid, which, who's going to pay the rest of the 7 days? But if I had to be out until I received my results back from the PCR test, I would still be off work a month later, like a full month. So the 2 clients that I have, both of them, their routines were way out of whack because I'm the primary caregiver for both of them. One is 96, one is 100. And they were both just so out of whack with me being out for 10 days. I had 4 negative rapid tests in that 10-day period. There was no symptoms. There was no nothing. So can we get for healthcare workers that have to do PCR tests, maybe we can get the test expedited, or maybe, we go to a certain place, a certain facility, whatever, that does PCR tests for healthcare workers only. Something like a healthcare provider still waiting a month later for a PCR test to come back. And I get tested daily, by the way, with the rapid test, and of course all my tests are negative, but something really and truly has to change here. Like seriously, I don't even know how else to explain it without like, spinning around in circles. But it's like, I have lots of friends in the field that, they go through similar, situations, but it's just like, it just really irritated the heck out of me, knowing that, for 10 days we have to be off and we're only paid for 3 of them. Like, wow, like, this is crazy. It's any wonder that, even before pre-COVID, like, people were still going to work sick, because, like, what are we supposed to do? Like what are we supposed to do? It's ridiculous. But, I'm back to work, and, the routines of my 2 seniors are getting back on track. But, like, I don't know. And I sent emails to the facility that we did our PCR test at. They told us that we're supposed to just keep checking online. I've sent emails to Doug Ford's office. I sent emails to Toronto Public Health, and, everyone is just like, oh, well, you have to, keep checking the website. And the emails that I received back from Doug Ford's office was just an auto reply, explaining, about the testing and stuff like that, which had nothing to do with my topic of discussion that I wanted answers on. And still, actually, today, I'd still like to have answers on it. But, I don't know what else to say or do in this situation.
Thanks, Janet. I know you're not alone, and you speak for a lot of different healthcare workers, especially PSWs, who have been on the front lines, who have done an incredible job. And I know one of the constituents, 2 of the constituents actually, both of them that you serve, you help, and you are so important to their health, their well-being. And it's so important that we make sure that you're able to go back to providing the care they need. So putting you on hold like that is unbelievable. And paid sick days is another issue that we've been fighting for.
But if we have to be out, like, if I had to be out until I received my PCR test, I would still be out, because I haven't received the results back yet. Like, and then, what are we supposed to do in the meantime, right? Like we have to self-isolate, which we did. The only time that we went out was to go and get the PCR test. And by the way, it took us almost 2 days to find a location that we could do the PCR test at that wasn't for travel. Like, all these places are doing PCR tests for people that want to travel and then charging them for it. And I believe I've heard several times from Christine Elliott and a few others that, oh no, when you go and get a PCR test, it's free. But what about us, like a healthcare worker, me, that I need to get back to work, and it like, nobody was helping out. Like, where are we supposed to get our tests done? So, my spouse luckily found a place that we went to do it, but it's just like, like what are we supposed to do in the meantime? Like, and where we live, there's lots of pharmacies around that we could have went to, but and actually we're on 3 waiting lists, and I'm probably talking over my time here, and I'm very sorry, but like, we're on 3 waiting lists at 3 different Shoppers Drug Marts to get PCR tests done, that we're still waiting for the pharmacist to call us back, because that's the only way that we could get an appointment, is we have to register, and then we have to wait for the pharmacist to call us back to be able to go and get PCR tests done, unless we're going for travel, and then they'll call us back right away, because then we have to pay for it, right? So we're still, no one has contacted us yet from the 3 different Shoppers Drug Marts that we went on the waiting list for to be able to do it. And we have one right here at the corner that we could have walked to in 5 minutes. But instead, we went all the way to the other side of the city, basically, to do this, right? Which I think also needs to change too, right? Like, because and who's traveling now anyways? Like, why are so many places having PCR tests available for people to travel? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense, but it's frustrating. It's irritating, and hopefully it changes.
Thanks, Janet. You pointed out something very, very important, especially the inequity when we talk about access for healthcare workers, and access for people who may not have the ability to pay, the large amount for PCR tests. I see Sarah Boomhauer making a comment, so I'm going to go to you, Sarah, next. Sarah's a community member, also very active, to share your thoughts. Any concerns? Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I just wanted to start by saying I'm hearing so much intersectionality, so much connection with the stories that were shared by Jessica and shared by the previous speaker as well. And I just thank you for sharing that, because it makes me feel connected, right? This is not just my story. I am an educator. And I can only speak for myself. I don't speak on behalf of the board or any organization. I just speak as an individual from the stories that I've heard and from the things that I've seen. And what I've seen is the data tells us that COVID didn't start this. We heard this before tonight, right? So this is just a highlight of what's been happening, and it's amplifying the experience of marginalized folks, which is totally unacceptable. So we're leaving students behind in so many ways. And as they share their stories and as they share their experiences and heartache, right? Well, I mean, we're going to be real here tonight. So as they share that, it's alarming. It's very alarming. And Jessica shared tonight about going to schools that are in challenging, like, physical spaces and the messaging, that impact on kids. But they're also coming from homes, like shared before, where families are under stress. Like when I hear that you have to be off work for 10 days, that's 2 weeks of wages. That's an entire paycheck. What is the impact on families? That's intense. An entire paycheck is likely rent, right? It's our housing. It's a huge chunk of food. I mean, it's intense. I just made a little bit of notes because I want to try to keep it concise. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that the students that we're servicing in Scarborough Southwest are experiencing COVID harshly, and they're experiencing their education system harshly. And this is not a news story, but it's a harder story right now. So we talked about technology, access to programming, access to food, all these things, right? If I cannot eat, I cannot learn. If I don't feel safe, I cannot learn. So if my base needs are not met, it doesn't matter how phenomenal that teacher is and how phenomenal that teacher loves me. If I'm hungry, I can't learn. And the data shows us this. So I'm excited to hear how some of the speakers tonight want to help advocate with teachers, because I think the education system as a whole is a caring profession, and like other caring professions like the healthcare system, we are hopeful and we are wanting to help, and we're pouring love and funds and food into the classrooms, but we're wanting to know how to work together, right? If there's funding out there, how do we access that? Is there other things that we can do to help equip our students to be successful, because they deserve success, right? And especially amplifying, I want to make sure my marginalized students are getting the very best access and less barriers. I want to break down those barriers, right? So I think I'm going to wrap it up there, but I am happy to answer or clarify if something was unclear. Thank you again for the space to share.
Thank you, Sarah. And I know how hard it's been for you as an educator, but you've been amazing with kids, with the community, informing in your students and being able to do the best, like all the other educators who have been going above and beyond to keep up. So thank you so much. Also, I believe I have two more constituents here, Doris and Alan, who are on the call as well. And then we'll ask Doris and Alan to unmute and turn on your camera if you feel comfortable, and then we'll go to all the panelists. Go ahead, Doris.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. I'm not really able to start the video just now. I'm trying, but okay, so the host has stopped it. But we are both, Ellen and I are both, okay, there we go. We got it now. Ellen and I are both retired professionals living here in Southwest Scarborough, and we have been appalled by the infections and deaths, by the suffering and the isolation of senior citizens and people with disabilities in nursing homes during the pandemic. We've seen some very serious deficiencies exposed, especially in for-profit nursing homes. And we also are aware of a huge discrepancy in funding. Right now, Ontario spends $4.3 billion on institutions for 70,000 people. But yet it only spends $2.5 billion on home care for 6 times as many people in the community. We believe that Ontario is failing our senior citizens and that we must do better. The current government has committed to building 30,000 new institution spaces, but that will not address the real problem, which we see as the need for a system of living arrangements and support for seniors so that we can all age well in our own homes and communities.
We at Ontario can do better. I spent my career in developmental services. I was one of many people involved in bringing people with intellectual disabilities out of institutions in this province and into community living again. Between 1971 and 2009, when the last of those institutions finally closed, we know how to support people with complex needs to live better lives in the community. This is not, we know how to do that in this province. The needs of elderly people are not that different from the needs of people with the intellectual disabilities. There's a wealth of knowledge and experience that should be applied to reform elder care. We need more and better home care. 96% of seniors want to stay at home in their own homes as long as possible and would prefer home health care for themselves and their family members over facility-based care. We need to support naturally occurring retirement communities. There's an example in Kingston, the Oasis model. There are many more examples to be found in the Aging Well report that was written by Don Drummond and colleagues at Queen's University in 2020. If we are to improve and transform elder care, there are 4 essential ingredients for success. First, focus on the person, the individual. Second, emphasize flexible arrangements tailored to the person. Third, help individuals and small groups to develop the supports they need where they already live. And fourth, if congregate housing is needed for some, small and dispersed is the only way to provide suitable arrangements. If we provide the support that people need and want to age in place, seniors will be happier and healthier, and Ontario will not need to build 30,000 new long-term care beds.
The Aging Well report stated that the best time to change course to address better the well-being of seniors was many years ago. The second best time is right now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Doris. Thank you so much, Ellen. I remember speaking to you earlier in the pandemic, and one of the things we took away actually from the conversation that I had with you, we were able to come up with a plan to reform the entire concept of senior care. And I know my colleagues here, as well as all 4 of my colleagues here who work in different parts of the community, agree that we shouldn't just focus on long-term care as a congregate setting where that space is given to them. There are different ways we can look at seniors care. I want to now hand it over to the panelists, and I'll start with Lynn Wheeler from the SCHC, if that's okay, Lynn.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, MPP Begum, for inviting me to this evening. I had prepared some remarks, and I think I'm going to touch on them a little bit because you'll see a theme running through my comments that have been already spoken today, and working together to find solutions. But I was reflecting on my experience in Scarborough over the last 2 years of the pandemic, and it's been an emotional roller coaster in my role as director at Scarborough Centre for Healthy Communities, and supporting a large city and programming, and it's been heartbreaking. It's been uplifting as well. Heartbreaking because the brunt of the pandemic, just as many of you said this evening, has been felt by those already experiencing inequities and challenges. Uplifting, I have to say, because the pandemic has galvanized Scarborough community to work together to overcome these challenges and find solutions. And, I'm not from Scarborough. I live in Peel, which is another area that's been devastated by the pandemic. But what I've seen about Scarborough is a large city, but it feels like a village. And the residents are reaching out to their neighbors, organizations, and building on existing relationships to form united response. And, I'm truly humbled by the knowledge, skill, and influence, resiliency of resident leaders and grassroots organizations. And just quickly tell you that I was doing interviews today, and I interviewed a gentleman from Afghanistan, and he has a master's in public health, and he's worked with international organizations. And I said to him, "Why are you applying for this job?" It was for an ambassador position. And he said, "You know what? I love the community. That's where my passion is, and I want to give back to my community, which is Scarborough." And, this is the kind of spirit that I witness every day. The challenges I've seen are like bang on with what you're all talking about. There's already challenges with decent living wage, affordable shelter, food, healthcare, paid sick times. We've touched on that. Education, so access to affordable education, so people, good education, solid education, and that's just to name a few. But at Scarborough Centre for Healthy Communities, we have over 40 programs specifically addressing these social determinants of health, including financial support and wraparound care for those that do test positive or have to isolate because they may have a family member that's tested positive. We also have our vaccine clinic for those that choose to have the vaccine, and you can book your appointment or just walk in. My last comments, I'm just going to say this. What keeps me awake at night is that the full impact of this pandemic across the world and right here in Scarborough has not yet been realized. And I worry about things like the long-term effects of COVID that continue to emerge and are long-standing and have permanent impact on activities of daily living. The burnout. Our colleagues, our PSW colleagues, our physician colleagues, they've been going straight out for 2.5 years, 2+ years now. I worry about mental health and addiction stemming from that burnout. Human resource crisis as a result, even in the education field for teachers. My sister is a grade 4 teacher, so, my heart's with educators. And then complicated grief from those who have lost loved ones to COVID, and the list goes on. But the one thing that has kept me in healthcare for over 30 years is I have faith in the human spirit, and I know we're going to get through this crisis together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you for highlighting also the support that Scarborough Center for Healthy Communities provides. It's been an essential resource for a lot of our community members. And to all of you who are tuning in, feel free to give us your questions. We'll put it on the chat as well, so it allows for the panelists to see what you're concerned about. The solutions that were the short-term solutions or the immediate solutions that we're going to have to every single aspect of this pandemic will have serious impact, serious result for the long-term impact that we have. And right now, I think that's what we're missing out with a lot of the government solutions that we are seeing. I want to go to MPP Marit Stiles next to share what you have been seeing and some of the work that you have been doing as well, because you've been incredible fighting for safe schools, safe classrooms for our kids, for educators. Take it away, Marit.
Well, thank you so much. And it's really great to be here with all of you tonight. It's a privilege to get to work with MPP Dolly Begum every day. She's an extraordinary fighter for Scarborough, for Scarborough Southwest. And I also want to thank everybody who's here tonight, but also especially all the folks who've been working with our kids, whether you're a parent or a grandparent, auntie, uncle, whether you're a student yourself or a teacher or another education worker. You heard tonight from some people who talked, I thought, so well about the contribution everybody has been making every single day at a really, really tough time. And I feel it. I'm a parent too. And, I'm lucky my kids are a little older. It's been a little easier, I think, than for some of the kids who've much smaller kids, at least in terms of being the parent in the situation. But it's been extraordinarily difficult struggle for so many. And I think as Jessica and Sarah talked about, we really know that the kids where there were already gaps in our education system, this crisis has just made that more apparent. And the kids that were falling through those cracks before, well, there's a whole lot more of them now today. I don't probably need to tell you everything that's happened because you're living it. But just to be really, really clear, as Dolly said, it has been a massive challenge for many, and our kids have borne a lot of the brunt of that. When you look back at the last 2 years, and maybe we may have forgotten this by now, so I always think it's important to remind people that when COVID hit, we were already facing a government that was going to get rid of 10,000 education workers, 10,000 teachers. And so that's how we came into COVID. And as a result of I think the decisions that the government made, our schools were closed to in-person learning for 28 weeks now in total. And that's the worst, that's the longest and the worst record of anywhere in North America. It's really a terrible record. Every single thing that the government did do, whether it was, as I think Jessica mentioned, getting laptops to families, or whether it was getting masks finally in the last few weeks out to, even some of them aren't even that great, but out to education workers, teachers, and kids, or dealing with ventilation issues in our schools. Whatever it was, we had to fight so hard. People in our communities had to fight, parents had to fight, we had to fight in the legislature, Dolly had to fight really hard. Every single thing that happened, it didn't just come easily. We had to fight for it. And it really didn't need to be that way. Everybody has been very consistent from the beginning, telling Doug Ford and Stephen Lecce, the Minister of Education, what they needed to do to ensure that our classrooms could be safe and healthy and open. But like everything else in the pandemic, again, it took shouting and begging and shaming to get those things done. So we have been successful in getting some things into student hands, a little late, that's for sure. But as I said, we are seeing some masks getting out there now. Some of the quality of them is a bit questionable. We have seen some ventilation improvements and HEPA filters in classrooms, but we're still not seeing some of the really basic things. We saw the government sort of roll back testing, and then we shamed them, and now they're putting some testing back in place. But and I think it was also Jessica who mentioned that we're seeing inconsistencies. So here in Toronto, the Toronto District School Board, the Catholic Board, they put some additional resources, because they could do that, into a few things, including, they made a commitment to report out a little bit sooner. But the government has basically said, you know what? We don't need to report anymore. And what that does is, not only does it mean that we don't know what's going on in our kids' classrooms, but it also means that it's really hard for critics of the government, or, people to say, this is working or this isn't working. And it's really hard to know how things are going. And that's really, really unfortunate, because if we've learned anything in this pandemic, surely it's the importance of being transparent, providing really good, clear communication. And so I'm pretty disappointed in how things have turned out. And I want to also add one more thing, which is, because I think, we'll have a chance hopefully to talk a little bit about what the impact has been on schools and on kids. But rather than invest now in trying to support our kids who we know are struggling, to support education workers, teachers, and others who we know are also really struggling, the government has decided in the last couple of years to cut almost $1 billion from education. It's just shameful. It seems it doesn't make any sense at all. And so I think it's really important that we in our communities continue to keep talking about this, continue to keep voicing our concerns. Dolly and and Wayne and other MPPs are going to keep raising these issues in the legislature over the next few weeks, because we know that it didn't need to be that way. And I'm really interested tonight in hearing more from all of you about what you're seeing in classrooms in Scarborough, what you're concerned about, and what your questions are. And thank you again, Dolly, for providing this opportunity for everybody to come together.
Thank you very much, Marit. One of the things, I know a few of our constituents actually wrote to me about this, which was when we heard that schools were not reporting, and Marit very well put it out there, the fact that why is it so difficult to get COVID outbreaks reported? And one of the things you said, Marit, was, and I can't forget, I don't think I'll ever forget it, which was, it's easier to get a lice outbreak.
Yeah, it's true. It's easier to find out if there's a lice outbreak in your child's classroom than it is to find out if there's a COVID outbreak, because they have to let you know right away when there's one outbreak of lice.
And it's unbelievable. That's the reality that we're facing more than almost 2 years into the pandemic. I want to go to Dr. Amina Jabbar, who I know has a lot of experience from Scarborough and has and I think you're able to unmute. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. It's really, really lovely to actually hear from everybody. So much of what everyone said has really, really resonated. Jessica, I've got 2 kids myself. I grew up in Scarborough. My family moved to Canada in 1999. We were undocumented in the US. And so came to Canada because it was our opportunity to actually have a life. And so, I grew up around Kingston and Markham. My mom still lives in Scarborough. She's at Markham and Shepherd. My brother is still there. My sister is still there. My mom is a union steward. She's a teacher for her kindergarten class at a private school in Scarborough with the UFCW. My sister is a union organizer, so we go very, very deep in Scarborough. And so it's really funny to me, Lynn, because I grew up in Scarborough, I live on the Danforth, but I work in Peel. So it's the other way around. Sarah, I know from Facebook groups, and Doris and Ellen and Janet, a lot of what you have said really resonates with the work that I do. So again, I'm a geriatrician, so I'm a physician for patients, and all of my patients, all the people that I see clinically are, for the most part, over the age of 65. I have a few people with early dementias that are younger than that. And I see people, Janet, the ages that you have as your clients, very similar to mine, right? Like the vast majority of the patients I see really are like in their 80s and 90s, right? Like this is the reality of an aging population. I always tell families, our life expectancy about 50 years ago was about 68. And now our life expectancy is 82. Right? Like we are living longer and more complicated lives. My clinical work, I am very, very lucky that I am probably one of a very few people in healthcare that can kind of span across places. So I do inpatient work. So I see patients that are really sick and come in with things like pneumonia or COVID or strokes. But I also see patients and people in home. So I do home visits as part of my practice. And for me, part of my home visiting practice also includes long-term care. So I've seen the big span of it. And Janet, so much of what you said resonated to me because I think in particular, one of the things I've reflected on over and over again is how hospital-centered our healthcare system is. And again, Doris and Alan, what you've said as well, it completely resonates along those same lines for me, is that there are so few resources that we have available to help people age at home. One of the things that I've seen hands down with COVID is that most of the patients that I see have dementia. And dementia is incredibly common. After the age of 70, it's 1 in 4. After the age of 80, it's 1 in 3. And after the age of 90, it's 1 in 2. It is really common. It touches all of our lives. And so one of the things that we know is totally, Jen, it's all about routines. It's all about routines. If you don't have the routine, you'll lose everything. Because once you have the routine, you know what to do and how to hold on to things. So I totally agree with you. And so one of the things that I see all the time, though, what COVID did was it broke everyone's routine. It meant that everyone who had a day program, who had any kind of communal living sort of setup, it all fell by the wayside. For the fortunate few who even had it. And so that really meant, from a dementia point of view, a lot of my patients who I thought would have taken 2-3 years to radically progress have progressed far faster than that. And so now they're stuck in a situation where we have completely abandoned home-based and community-based services to the extent through the last 20 years, that now that we really need to tap into them, they don't exist. We have never built any kind of long-term housing strategy for seniors because the supports that people need just don't exist. Long-term care is probably something that lots of people need. And what I can tell you right now, the number of patients that I have who are waiting at home in Peel is enormous. And the wait lists there are not moving at all because everyone who really needs long-term care is ending up now in hospital. And so the way the system is now prioritizing people for long-term care is if you're in hospital, you get bumped to the top of the list. So I now have community patients who are living at home, who've been waiting for long-term care for about 12 to 18 months. It's not feasible. And so once we've broken one part of the system, which is the community part of the system, the hospital stuff is now just falling apart as well, on top of everything else for seniors. We need massive amounts of investment. And I think one of the things that I think is really important for us to underscore, there's a fallacy that healthcare costs are rising because the number of old people are rising. That's not the case. We can do this. What's really, really gone down is the amount of money we collect from people, taxes that we collect from people who are wealthy. Right? Whether it's corporations, whether it is people who make 250, 300, 400K a year, the taxes that we collect are just not nearly as efficient as they used to be. And so we really need to build a bigger investment in social safety net, really fundamentally. We can afford this as a society. We can absolutely afford this as a society, but the investment needs to come from us, from everybody. And, per capita, when you look at it from a health policy perspective, our per capita spending has dropped dramatically over the last 20 to 30 years. And it's only because of our base has become smaller and smaller. We've really decided to completely shrink it. So really it's all about, I think people have said this over and over again, that COVID has provided us an opportunity to think about how do we re-envision what the world should look like. this is an opportunity for us to think about really being able to invest and reimagining what our social safety net can truly look like. I'll leave it at there.
Thank you so much, Amina. Wayne, I want to go to you. MPP Wayne Gates.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I know you saved the best for last. That's why you had me listen to this for the whole period of time. But I got to start with a good story. Marit and Dolly know how much I love them. They're two of my favorite MPPs. They do incredible work. Dolly, Scarborough is lucky to have you. You have the biggest heart I know, and your talent is just incredible. And you're so young, and you just do a great job up there. So I just wanted to say that. But I also want to start with a good story, because we hear all this bad stuff. So today, my office found out at 3:30 today that about the rapid test. We all saw the press conference and how they were going to be free. And then we ended up getting a call from somebody that went to Walmart, and they had to buy $35 worth of groceries to get a rapid test. And we put out a press release extremely quick. We talked to our, people in Toronto, which is our, our social people for the party. But we put it out. Andrea ended up putting something out as well. A lot of my colleagues put some stuff out. And I just got informed in just 3 hours. Ford put something out at 6 o'clock. But in just 3 hours, we were able to get a major victory that Walmart has now backed down on charging everybody for the COVID rapid tests. So when people say that opposition can't really get a lot done, there's an example. We took on the richest company in the world, quite frankly, and one that I don't think a lot of people should shop at, but that's my own personal opinion. But there we did it. So I think that's a good news story to start with. On the health and safety part of this, we have so much that's gone on through COVID, and because the doctor talked last, I'll address her real quick. The problem that we had, in my opinion, and I'm not saying I'm right, that happened in long-term care, retirement homes, and to a lesser extent, home care, started under the Harris government when they privatized long-term care. That's where it really started. And nobody really talks about the damage that was done. And as we saw over the course of the 20 years, and you're absolutely right, COVID really shone a light on long-term care, but it wasn't what caused the problem. The problem was very clear, that instead of spending the money in care on our loved ones, whether it's our parents, our grandparents, our aunts or uncles, it was going for profit. It was going to shareholders, including the former premier who got paid $250,000 to sit on a board that never meets. So we have lots of issues in long-term care. A lot of them are PPE. When this started, they didn't have PPE. They didn't have proper staffing. And in the first wave, quite frankly, in long-term care, we ended up losing almost 2,000 of our loved ones. And then we kind of got out of the first wave, and we went through the summer. So we had 5 or 6 months before the second wave really hit. But we didn't do anything in long-term care. We didn't provide them PPE. We didn't provide them staff. We didn't make sure that some of the rooms that had 4 to a room were relocated. And then what happened again? So we ended up having more people die. And these are all could have been done if we just would have took some health and safety measures around PPE, making sure they eat in their cafeterias and where they had space and separate. They didn't have proper N95 masks forever. So the long-term care thing started 20 years ago. COVID, I think we're at 4,800. Now you think about that. There are moms, our dads, our aunts, our uncles, our loved ones, and the terrible death that they died. And as some of us know with the military report, they died from not even getting water. So we have lots to do around long-term care. In my riding, I had an issue there where 100% of the residents got sick with COVID, 100% of the staff got sick with COVID, and 40 people died. And all that could have been prevented if they just did the things that they had to do around health and safety. So I just wanted to start with you because you were the last to talk. I want to say to Lynn really quickly, Scarborough Community Health Centers. I want to tell you, I have a community health center in my riding. You do incredible work. I can't tell you how closely we work with our community health center here in Niagara, but I know the work that you're doing similar work right across the province with community health centers. So I just want to say thank you. We hear you, but on a further note, you're helping us every day in my office. because of the challenges that we face. And I saw some of your in the chat. So I wanted to say thank you to you. I think it's important to do that as well, because I'm not so sure you paid sick days. And if any area of the province understood the importance of having paid sick days, is the Scarborough area. When you take a look at a place, now it's easy to use the big ones because we all can relate with them. You take a look at a place like Amazon, where we had 1,000 Amazon workers in that area that had COVID. We had individuals that died, including a bus driver that was driving the workers back and forth that died, an ATU member, all because they wouldn't provide proper ventilation, proper mask. These were things that are preventable. And how did you fix that? They didn't have sick days. If you remember, Ford government, one of the first things he did was take the 2 days sick days away from everybody. Meanwhile, we ran into COVID, and he increased them to 3 after almost 3 years, and instead of the 10 that we need. So when you're making $15 to $17 an hour living in Scarborough or Toronto or some of those big municipalities, your rent and you're paying your food, you can't take time off unless you have sick days. Sick days are so important to what caused people to end up getting sick, taking home their family, and unfortunately we had a number of people die up there. There's presumptive coverage that I think we need to have, and that really fell into PSWs, fell into nurses, firefighters already have it, some of them have it. Correction officers need presumptive, and that's where they go in. They know they're getting COVID at work, yet the company, including healthcare places, are saying, well, no, you probably got it at Shoppers and in the community somewhere. And now we're fighting WSIB to try to get them their WSIB, the money that they need to survive when they suffer through COVID. One that we haven't talked about, workers' inspections. We need more inspections in our workplace, and I don't want to talk too long, but that's very important. Again, Amazon was another example of that. You know, they were inspected. I don't have any notes. I'm thinking maybe 10 times. I'll use that as an example. Not once were they fined for anything that they were doing wrong. Not once, and not one long-term care facility was fined either, or retirement home. Inspections have to have the resources, they have to be able to have the power to shut places down that are unsafe. And the last one I'll talk real quickly, but it's probably one of the most important that we haven't talked about a lot tonight, and it's not really in health and safety, but it's something that's affecting all of us through COVID, and that's our mental health. What we're suffering with our mental health. It doesn't matter if you're a PSW, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a firefighter, correction officer, you're our young kids that are in school. We're seeing so many more young people end up with mental health issues, not getting the help they need, not having the resources to go to. And unfortunately, some of those young people are committing suicide. 20% of our population today have mental health issues. And we have to have a discussion around that. It might not be in kind of my role as health and safety and some of the other stuff that I have in my critic's job, but it's one that we've got to talk about, and we got to put the resources in place. Too many people are suffering from mental health. Too many people are dying from mental health as well. So I wanted to finish with saying that. And I just want to say to Dolly, thanks for inviting me. I really, really do appreciate it. And I know how hard you work for Scarborough. And it's always nice to hear about the problems in other areas of the province, knowing full well that they're just not happening in my riding. I have a lot of these same problems that you're having right across the province. So again, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Wayne. I know we went over time, and I have requested the panelists to give me a few more moments because this is such an important discussion. I didn't realize the amount of questions we would also get. So we're happy to hear this, and we'll try our best to continue the conversation at a later date. I just want to get a few questions in and share some of the thoughts we heard online today. Executive Director Nasima Akhtar from one of our local organizations actually wrote about mental health as well. And she wrote, "Here I am sharing our youth concerns at their language. During the time of the pandemic, we have been forced into constantly changing circumstances. The situation at school and schools and everywhere else is always changing, and it is hard to constantly adjust. For some, this also takes a toll on their mental health. Lack of sufficient gone deep, sufficient sleep, and nutrition due to school pressure, declining mental health, and lack of job security, fears of future careers, affordability, housing, tuition, and I think this is something that that Wayne, you were talking about as well, and I see it in our comments. Some of our other constituents have been talking about. It's a wide range of questions. Julius talked about TCHC, Toronto Community Housing, and what's happening to increase digital equity and access to affordable high-speed internet, because we talk about how people can have access, but if you don't have good internet connection, you don't really have access to any of these things. You can just give a device, but if you don't have good internet, then it doesn't really mean much to have an iPad or a computer, and that's been an issue in some of our TCHC homes as well. I want to open it up to the panelists to share any final thoughts that you have, and then maybe I'll do just one more round of questions and then end it there, if that's okay with you. Does Amina, Marit, Lynn, Wayne, if you'd like to share anything. Marit, I'll go to you.
There we go, unmuted. Well, I have to say, listening to some of the points that have been raised and some of the comments, it really makes me think about what we need to do next. So we're in this still. We're still in this. We're still, as Wayne pointed out, we never can give up. We can continue to make change, and what I think we've learned in this evening from everybody is that when we do come together, when we do use the tools that we have, when we do speak out, and when people come to us, we're able to take those voices to the legislature, and we can make change. What I'm seeing happening, I know a lot of people have talked about what the impact is on our communities and our kids in particular of this moment of COVID, and particularly in terms of schooling. And as I said earlier, a couple of the other speakers mentioned the cracks in the system that were already there, even under previous governments. We saw literally cracks in the ceiling. We've seen capital repair, a backlog that's now up to $16.8 billion. It's unimaginable. We have so much work to do. And the government before us got us to about 15.8 billion. So, if we don't actually start to invest properly and in a smart way, we're not going to be able to find our way out of it very easily. It's just going to get worse. And in terms of our kids, what we're hearing and seeing right now are, the impact of the disruption. So we're starting to see kids that have been falling behind, teachers certainly reporting that kids have lost a lot of the early learning. They're behind in reading, for example. And I know how hard Scarborough families work and how much they value education. And so how hard people work to make sure that their kids don't fall behind. But it really does depend a lot as well on, what kind of resources our government puts in place. We shouldn't have to go and wait for, a year to have our child seen to find out what if they have some diagnosis that's making it difficult for them to learn. We should have, and I think it was Sarah mentioned, more caring adults in our schools who can do that kind of work, more mental health support. We are hearing a lot about kids who are in crisis, more and more kids families looking for mental health support for children and youth. Eating disorders are way, way up. And so, this is a crisis. And if we don't address those things now, you can think, well, 2 years or 28 weeks of disruption, like what does that really look like? Well, the experts in education and child development are saying it could have generational impact. We want our kids to graduate from school, to have opportunities to train or do post-secondary education, and we want them to do better than us. That's what every parent wants, right? We just want our kids to do well, and we want them to maybe have a little more in life. And I think it's heartbreaking for a lot of us to see the impact this is having and not see the government do what's needed, which is to invest, to put those emergency supports in place now so that our kids can get those supports right now when they need it, and we're not paying the price for it down the road, whether it's 2 years down the road or 10 years down the road or 20. So I do think there are answers and solutions. There's some really good ones out there, but we need to keep the pressure up on the government to do the right thing. And thank you again, Dolly, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Marit. That was wonderful. I know there are a few comments as well about funding for healthcare, for education. Ryan Williams wrote about how we need healthcare funding. What about long COVID, another issue that people are really concerned about? Do we even know the long-term effects of having this virus for some, especially elderly and the vulnerable people? And I think Marit also talked about, rightfully so, about the impact it's having on our kids and what it means for their future, whether it's health or their just life prospects, right? Lynn, I'm seeing you nod, so I'm going to go to you next.
It's just been such an honor to listen to all of my fellow panelists and to the other resident speakers. SCHC is here for you, and we have so many programs and services that are here and have been in this community for over 40 years. And we used to say that SCHC was the best kept secret in Scarborough, but no more. I think we've shown that we are working with our community. We're listening to what your needs are, and we want to work with you and help support you and advocate. And thank you so much. It's been a great evening.
Thank you very much, Lynn. We were really glad to recognize many of the staff members and volunteers at SCHC because, like Wayne said, you do an amazing amount of work, and we're so happy to have you because I think this pandemic has a toll on our staff, and it meant a great deal to us to be able to go to a place and say, here is something that we're not able to fix, but I know that you have some resources that you may be able to provide for us. I want to go to Dr. Amina Jabbar.
Thank you so much for holding the space to have these conversations. And I think just be able to vocalize them. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that the upcoming provincial election is probably going to be the most important in this generation. So I think, keeping the pressure up will be really, really critical, and thinking about really how can we re-envision a system that works for everybody.
Absolutely. Some of the things that we're hearing, and one of the things Ryan pointed out is about what kind of mistakes that the government's making. How do we make sure that we keep them accountable? Donna Newman also, mentioned something that the government just decided on, and I want to come to Wayne if you have one more minute to talk about this. Donna Newman wrote to us and said, "I would gladly continue paying for a car license sticker to keep $1 billion in the budget for education, senior supports, and healthcare, but also wonder if there are restrictions on where this money can be funneled." People want to see their tax dollars, to want to see the money that they give to the government in I think the most honest in an expectation that government takes that money and does well. It does the best possible for our communities, for our people, and people are willing to do that as long as they see that money goes to good use. Wayne, I know you talk about this a lot, especially when we talk about workers' rights and how WSIB funding is going. But share what your thoughts are on any of the concerns that the constituents raised.
Well, first of all, I will say that we have to do more for home care as well. So we didn't really touch a lot on home care. Home care really is where we should be investing money. And here's an example: instead of doing these stickers on your vehicle for $110 or $120, what it is, there's where the money should go. You should collect the money, People don't want to end up having private healthcare. This is where this government's going to go. They want to privatize healthcare. They want to privatize home care. They want to privatize everything. So if you suck all the money off and nobody's paying for it, then you're going to run into problems. So then they say, well, the hospitals run down, it's, hallway medicine, because they're not putting the dollars into our hospitals. They're not putting the dollars, as Marta said, into our schools. Don't buy into this. This is nothing more than trying to buy your vote at your own expense, because we're all going to need healthcare at some point in time, whether it's ourselves or our parents or our grandparents, our aunts or uncles. Our kids may break their leg playing soccer. Whatever it is, they're going to need healthcare. And if we allow them to suck dollars away from it, it's the biggest mistake we can do. We should be saying to Ford, no, take that money. I don't mind paying that $120 because I know what's going into healthcare. I know it's going into education. I know it's going back into my community. We should be all saying, no, we see what you're doing. And quite frankly, I don't know where our party will go or other parties will go. We should say, no, we're going to keep it because we know that money is going to be better spent in the things that we need in our everyday lives. And that includes healthcare and education. Two of the most important things we do. If you don't invest in your kids, a country's going to be in trouble. A province is going to be in trouble. So the way to invest is make sure we have the dollars that we can invest. And the lights and stickers is one way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Thank you to all of you. I know I've taken more time than I asked for, so I really appreciate it. And to all my wonderful constituents who joined as well, thank you so very much. I know there are quite a few other questions, folks, that I couldn't address today. We will try our best to respond to them, especially with issues of grants. Yasser, I saw the question about the taxi drivers being left behind from the business grants. There are other concerns about funding and the rapid tests. We'll try our best to get back to you on all of those issues. Like I said, this is an ongoing discussion. We'll have more town halls, and I look forward to hearing from you. And I want to thank all my panelists, Dr. Amina Jabbar, Lynn Moore Wheeler, MPP Mara Stiles, MPP Wayne Gates, as well as Alan, Doris, Jessica, Janet, Sarah, and all of you who joined us. And thank you to all the questions. You have been amazing. Let's do a photo. I see Wayne pointing. So Maisha, if you could help us with this, then we'll do a photo. And well, this is also recorded, so we will be able to take a screenshot as well, and we're live. So so I'm sure we done. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, MC. And thank you, Maisha, for putting this together. I am very grateful to have you all, and thank you for the work that you do for your communities, for the people of this province. It means a great deal, and be safe out there. I wish you well, and I will join you guys next time. Scarborough Southwest, stay safe. And reach out to us if you have any concerns. While the panelists are jumping off, or if you want to stay, I want to give you guys a quick update on a few things that we're working on. So to those of you who are still here on our live session, we hope that you will join us for our Valentine's Day initiative, something that I learned from MPP Mara Stiles, who has been doing in Davenport as well. And we are doing an initiative to send Valentine's Day cards to our seniors. So if you'd like to join us and send a card to someone special in a senior's home, in a care home, please do check out our posts about the initiative that we've taken on. And I hope we can send over 100 cards to some of the seniors before Valentine's Day. It's such an adorable initiative, and I hope that we can put some smiles on our seniors in Scarborough Southwest. Folks, as we continue facing this pandemic and many issues that comes with this pandemic, our team, my staff are here for you. I know Wayne's team, Mara's team are here, as well as SEHC, the work that they've been doing, and Amina has been a fighter on the front line. So thank you to all of you, and we're here to help. We'll continue to do the work. Stay well. Good night, everybody. Take care.